Welcome. At this time, I'd like to call to order the July 7th, 2015 regular scheduled meeting of the Davie County Board of Education. If you would, please bow with me for the invocation. As we gather together this afternoon, I express thanks for this day and all of its blessings. I ask this board to be mindful of the business we are about to undertake. We are thankful for everyone in attendance today. Further, we are thankful for the opportunity to govern and the freedoms we enjoy. We pause to remember the students, faculty members, and families in our system and community who are facing challenges. Our positive thoughts are with them. As always, we seek wisdom to make the best decisions for the students and citizens of Davie County. Amen. At this time, we're moving on to the pledge, and if you would, please stand with me as we have our pledge. Thank you. It's good to see everyone this afternoon. At this time, we're moving on to adopting the agenda, and I will call for a motion to adopt the agenda. We have a motion by Ms. Owens. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Drexler. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, we're moving on to approval of minutes from our last regular scheduled meeting of June the 2nd, 2015. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do I have a second? I have a second by Ms. Livingood. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, we're moving on to the reorganization of the board, and I will turn this over to Ms. Wilson.
I think that's on. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Happy new fiscal year, board members, and new school year, believe it or not. It's the beginning of a new school year and also a beginning of the new organizational year for the board. At this point, it would be time to entertain nominations for chair.
Members of the board, I would like to nominate Mr. Fuller as to continue as our chair, and with great appreciation, I'd like to do that, and thanks ahead of time.
Very nice. Nominations do not require a second, so we'll entertain. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Mr. Fuller continuing as chairman, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And so I believe you are the chair, and I have completed all of my jobs. That was exhausting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson, and thanks for the vote of confidence, guys. I appreciate that. I will do my best. At this time, I'll take nominations for the election of vice chair.
I'll make the motion that Clint Junker continue as vice chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Horn. So we do not need. Okay, so we don't need a second. So at this time, I'll call for a vote for the nomination of Clint Junker for vice chair. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you for that, Mr. Junker. At this time, we're moving on to important dates, and I've got a few that I will point out. On August the 3rd, early college open house is from 6:30 to 7:30. That same night, the Board of Commissioners have a meeting starting at 6. Then we have our next regular scheduled meeting on August the 4th at 4 p.m. in this room. And then the early college first day of school will be August the 5th. August the 19th at, let's see, from 2 to 4, we have the Davie High School freshman orientation. From 4 to 6:30, preschool open house. 4:30 to 6:30, sixth grade open house. On the 20th, we have from 2 to 4, CDA open house. From 4:30 to 6:30, seventh and eighth grade open house. 5:30 to 7:30, elementary schools and Davie High School open house. And then there'll be the Davie County Schools Convocation will be in the Davie High School gym on August the 21st. And then the first day for students back in school, it will be the 24th at all the other schools. So that's kind of a rundown of important dates for the next month. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hartness for his superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would say congratulations to Mr. Fuller and Mr. Junker. I look forward to working with both of you as I do the rest of the board. You guys are an incredible school board, and it makes my job easy to work with such fine people. So I thank you for your dedication and your support of our school system. So my update contains some not really good news, and then some not really good news, and then some good news. So I'll start off with the bad and get to the good. How's that? Over the past couple weeks, I wanted to just ensure that all the board members received a couple memos that I had sent. One I issued on June the 26th, I believe. Another that I issued on July the 6th. And these were related to complaints that we had received from North Davie Middle School about an odor outside of the school. Some complaints from staff that had been conveyed through our principal, some complaints from parents in the car rider line, and some other things. So I've given you a summary of how those complaints have been handled, and I just had a couple comments I'd like to make about those. I know that this has been a rather hot issue in the community over the last few days, and there's been a lot of false information that's been spread by a few people in the community about this topic. And I just want to be real clear what our concerns are so that the community understands what those concerns are. There is a commercial food composting operation that is being run behind North Davie Middle School and the new high school facility. And we've received complaints about odors, pungent odors coming from that direction. And we filed those complaints with the County of Davie for them to handle. And that's really our only concern with that operation or that piece of property, is that there is an odor nuisance. Let me finish if you don't mind, Mr. Drexler. There are a few people in this community who have latched on to this odor complaint that we filed and made it about the new high school. And that's unfortunate because it really has nothing to do with that topic. But I'm not surprised because those are the same people that were opposed to the school to begin with. So that's kind of where that's landed. But I want the board and the community to be very clear. There's some false information out there that your superintendent and your board chair were wanting to purchase property behind that school. And we don't need any additional land for Davie County High School. We don't need the Gallons property. And we didn't need it a year ago. We really don't need it now. So there's no desire to purchase any more land. We have the property that we need to build the school and the facilities that we designed. So really the only issue we have is we've had some complaints from the school about odors. And those are significant complaints. And we filed those with the county, and we've conveyed that to the county. I understand that last evening in the Board of Commissioners meeting, there was a lot of not so nice things said about honesty and integrity of the superintendent and folks sitting around me. And I'll just say to those folks who made those statements, I'll let my record stand as it is. I've really quickly come to the realization that this issue that became a simple complaint that was shared with us has nothing to do with Davie County Schools. It really has nothing to do with the new high school. It really has nothing to do with commercial composting. It's become political, and that's real unfortunate. But I want to make sure everyone understood where I was coming from and had received the memos, and I'll keep you up to date if there's anything else that happens with that. But it's unfortunate this matter has gotten to the level that it has, but we've dealt with it as we should. If board members have any questions or concerns about the matter you'd like to talk to me about, you'd like to see any communications between me and Mr. Gallons, the property owner, I'd be glad to share those with you. Let me give you an update on the budget. So this is not as good either, but we've heard a lot over the last several weeks, and you get information, updates from the School Boards Association and your legislative alerts about the state budget. And since the state budget is such a significant portion of our overall operating budget, it has a tremendous impact on Davie County Schools. I want to highlight some of the significant changes that are in the continuing budget resolution that the House and Senate passed. It will be in effect through August the 14th. So that's the cutoff date right now. If they don't do anything different between now and the 14th, adopt a budget, they'll have to adopt another continuing resolution. So growth across North Carolina, the school districts that are growing, the growing student population in our state has been funded. And we were concerned about that, but that's a good thing. Driver's education has not been funded, and we have a separate agenda item tonight. We'd like to talk to you about that and what our options are and how we communicate that with parents moving forward based on what's in the continuing resolution. I guess one of the most significant things that concerns me about the budget is the continuing resolution reduces the teacher assistant allotment in North Carolina by $24.8 million. And that's, this is one-time, non-recurring funding, and it's about a 6% reduction. That's just part of the continuing resolution between now and August 14th. The part that bothers me is what is on the table from the Senate side. The Senate side has a significant reduction, over 50% of the teacher assistant allotment for K-3, and that's a lot. So to help you understand the impact of that for Davie County Schools, our K-3 teacher assistant allotment last year was just under $1.5 million. That's what the state gave us in that one line item for teacher assistants. Now, we pay for teacher assistants from other sources of funds. We used all of those monies to employ about 63 teacher assistants this past year. So any reduction to that, let's say there was a 50% reduction or a 60 or 70% reduction, that would affect that group of teacher assistants. Not necessarily those that are in K-3 classrooms, because we do have flexibility to move people around, but that allotment is the one that is targeted by the Senate. So you can see what type of impact that has. That teacher assistant allotment, one line item from the state, is about half the total allotment for our TAs. Classroom teachers with 0 to 4 years on the salary schedule will get a salary bump from $33,000 to $35,000. We do know that going into the continuing resolution, and that's something that both House and Senate have agreed upon. There's been $20 million reduced in the transportation allotment, and funding for other allotment categories are at current levels based on ADM growth until there's a final budget that's approved. So let's talk a little bit more about the Senate budget and what concerns I have about that moving forward. This coming school year, the Senate plan reduces the class size in grades 1 through 3 to 1 teacher for every 16 students. The following year, it drops from 1 to 15. The second year, the kindergarten ratio would also drop to 1 to 17. That's the same allotment that pays for art, PE, and music teachers. So while the Senate may be saying we're going to have a 1 to 15 ratio, you could have that with that allotment if you did away with all those other things. So we won't be getting toward that type of ratio anytime soon with additional funding. To pay for those teacher positions, they're using teacher assistant money to do that. So that's where they would pay for that. The funding reduction they've outlined is the equivalent of 8,500 fewer teacher assistants in North Carolina. That's significant. Whether that happens or not, we will have to wait and see. If the Senate does not, and the Senate and the House don't agree, and all indications we have right now, they are so far apart, it could be October before we got a final state budget. If they don't agree in the next few weeks, it puts us really at a difficult situation going into the school year. The folks in Raleigh don't quite understand the logistics of opening a school year or opening a school. So let me share with you some of the concerns that I have in the way that we would implement this when there are changes or if there are changes. My primary concern is for people. I'm concerned about the teacher assistants. These are paraprofessionals that are in our schools who make a big difference in instruction. They transport students around the school. They transport students to and from school. A lot of our bus drivers are teacher assistants. They work in small groups with teachers. They support instruction. They're an integral part of what we do in education. So I really have a lot of concern about them first as employees and as people. As you know, and as we've recognized, Andrea Cranfield was here a few weeks ago, and we recognized her as our Teacher Assistant of the Year. Andrea is also the North Carolina Teacher Assistant of the Year. I've talked with Andrea, and Andrea has been involved in lobbying legislators. She has met with our Senator Brock. She shared with me that Senator Brock met with them in the hallway and was supportive. And then the Senate delegation, including our senator, were not very supportive of teacher assistants when they were on the floor. So she was very disappointed in our local representation as well as the rest of the Senate for their support of teacher assistants. So if people have concerns, I think they should contact their representatives. I talked this week to the incoming president of the local Teacher Assistant Association, and I appreciate her stance and look forward to working with her and appreciate her advocacy for her colleagues. She understands how important these positions are to the school system. So not only do you look out for the teacher assistants themselves and their livelihood and their profession, but if we get additional classroom teachers, as outlined in the Senate budget, where do you hire those teachers? The best teachers coming out of colleges and universities are hired in May, June, and July. So if you get those allotments and you don't have an opportunity to file for a waiver that would allow you to use that allotment for teacher assistant positions, who do you hire? So that's a concern, and I don't think the legislature thinks through that as they're making law. Another issue is infrastructure. It sounds really good politically to say we want to reduce class size. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Reducing class size means you need to have more classrooms. We're fortunate that in some of our places we do have space for an additional teacher. In a lot of our places we don't. So I don't think that's been given ample consideration. Another consideration is transportation. If you reduce all these teacher assistants, how do we get students to and from school? I don't think they've thought about that either. And Mr. Wallace and I and Mr. Naylor have had conversations about how we could handle that from a transportation perspective, how we could adjust bus routes to accommodate fewer bus drivers. So that's another one. Poses a pretty significant challenge for your principals. If I'm a principal out in the school right now, I'm thinking about who do I have on my team next year? Who's going to be in this classroom, I'm planning where students will be. I'm planning who will be doing what duties. And all of that is really up in the air right now because the way we have handled this continuing resolution is we've frozen hiring additional teacher assistants if we have vacancies. And we can handle what's in the continuing resolution that way. If there are additional cuts, then we and every other school district in the state will be forced to do a reduction in force. And we would have to come to you and say, due to lack of state funding, we need to reduce this number of positions. So that's not a very good position to be in at all. So the issues I've raised, I think, are pretty practical issues, and I really wish the folks in Raleigh would hear and understand the impact of their decisions and the impact of their lack of decision. So that's the position that we're in. So we're kind of in a holding pattern. We will come back to you with more information in August as we learn where things are headed, and hopefully we'll have some more information so we can make some better decisions to open the school year. All right, so I'll be positive for the rest of my comments. I want to first thank Congresswoman Virginia Fox. Congresswoman Fox invited me and 5 other superintendents to her Clemens office last week, and we sat down and talked about the reauthorization of ESEA and the impacts of that federal legislation. And I will tell you, the proposals that are on the table by both from the national scene, from the House and Senate, are much better than what we've had in No Child Left Behind in the past. I believe it's her priority and the priority of the House and the Senate to reduce federal intrusion in public education and give more of those responsibilities back over to the states and to local governments and to local school boards. There's some things, of course, in both of those pieces of legislation that we agree with and things that we don't agree with, but for the most part, whatever comes out of either chamber is better than what we have now. It's a long shot, to see if that will be reauthorized, especially with the presidential election coming up. Again, if congressmen and local legislators were really doing things based on what was good for children and what's good for education, it'd be different. But as you know, it all becomes very political quickly, especially in the times that we're in. Also, Noel is going to be bringing us an update. There's some good things going on in our school district this summer. We have our summer camps and Read to Achieve camp that's underway, some enrichment experiences that are very positive for our students. We also have some new administrators in the room that are starting their duties, and I want to recognize a few folks if they would stand. First, I'll recognize Mary Margaret Sullivan, new principal at Shady Grove Elementary School. Welcome, Mary Margaret. We look forward to your leadership at Shady Grove. She's already hit the ground running. Also want to recognize Ms. Cindy Myers. Cindy, would you stand? Cindy is our new assistant principal at North Davie Middle School. Welcome, Cindy. And last but not least, new assistant principal at South Davie Middle School, Mr. Andy Oberman. Welcome, Andy. We are fortunate to have these folks on our team, and I will tell you, it is energizing to go through the interview process with Mr. Wallace and other staff and to see the fine candidates that are interested in Davie County and the ones that become part of our team. So we really look forward to working with all three of you this next school year. And the last thing I'll say is I want to congratulate Doyle Nicholson, who's in the green shirt there. He's made his way back from Charlotte. He was on WFAE. Let's see if I can do this. Charlotte's NPR source.
Very nice.
Doyle was on NPR this morning and was part of an education roundtable discussion for almost an hour, along with 3 other teachers in our fine state. And Doyle is effective principal, effective math teacher for a long time, and brought a lot of value to the conversation. Enjoyed listening to some of that this afternoon. So congratulations, Doyle. And board, you can see that we have people on our staff that are making not only an influence here in Davie County, but sharing their experience with people around the nation. That's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hartness.
Dr. Hartness, I very much appreciate your words having to do with the Galen's Farm. I knew of one official complaint, and you, I don't know what the right word is, you presented it to the appropriate people. Was there more than one or just one?
Mr. Dexter, if you'll recall, on March the 24th, I believe, we had a parent advisory group meeting at North Davie Middle School, and that evening it was shared with me, and I believe you were standing there, and Mr. Fuller was standing there, from the principal that she had heard from parents and staff members in the car rider line that there was an odor outside of the school. That complaint was conveyed to the county. After hearing that, that was the first official complaint we had heard from staff. I did hear from construction workers. I've talked with Mr. Jim Moorfield, our project manager, and it appears that the pungent odor is a daily occurrence.
Thank you. At this time, we're moving on to construction project update and the new high school facility, and I'll call on Mr. Jim Moorfield.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you, Chairman, board members, for having me here. And this is my first opportunity to address you as a whole, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of your history. It is going to be a fantastic project. I look forward to it, and I hope and I know you will be enjoying every minute of it about 2 years from now. So just hang on, we'll get there. Our major activities right now is the grading process. We have started removing the dirt from the practice field and putting it in storage, so that is beginning to take shape. As y'all all are aware, we have removed a tremendous amount of rock, and we've done an excellent job of hiding it someplace. And we've done footings. We've started footings, and that process has been going on for approximately 2 weeks or so. And I have some handouts that I want to start y'all with. And the very first one you'll see is our first load of concrete going into the first footing on the site, which I thought was kind of neat. We'll see how long it takes us to get from this date of 6/22 to completion. And I have another photo that shows typical footing for you that may not understand what's in the ground. And then the last photo shows what it looks like before we put the rebar. And I have a handout that shows each of you how many or how much of the footings we have in place. About a third of the classroom building. And I'll start there. This plumbing subcontractor today started putting his plumbing underground in the classroom building. He prefabricated a lot of that underground, brought it to the site, and it's going in. I think we have a plumbing inspection by the county either Friday or Monday of this week. We'll start covering that back up. And basically the next 2 weeks, we should see a lot more activity on site. The masons should be there on Monday. It'll take them a little while to get started. They're going to do foundation block. And that is a milestone because it lets us then get ready to start pouring floor slabs. So that is a big thing. And the utilities, they're staging on site now to start the utility stormwater and the water lines. We are working we'll start working shortly with Time Warner and Yadkin Telephone to relocate the utilities that are out on the road for the widening project. And that will be, hopefully, we will be able to get that water line relocated prior to the start of the school year. That's our goal. Right now, I'd say we're on schedule because we're so new at this. We've only had a couple of weeks of time behind us. So I think we're doing a really good job. Our New Atlantic staff is first class. I've worked with these guys before. So everything appears to be going real well, and I'm encouraged. 6 months from now, I may tell you a different story. But we're beginning to do some footings in the main building, in the mechanical room, kitchen, and we hope to have that under roof by winter to give our mechanical guys a place to work as the weather turns bad on us, because we have a tremendous amount of work to do in those facilities, and we need to work out of those into the main building and into the classroom. So are there any questions? It's short, but we're getting there, and it's picking up every day, which is exciting. Anybody?
I just want to say thank you for the photos, and that's a great history to keep for us so that we can see starting to the end, and I thank you for those, and I hope that you continue those.
I'll bring you some. I take some. Dr. Hartness sees my field reports. I don't know if he shares them or not, but I just picked photos from there that may have some interest for you guys. But I'll do that, no problem.
Mr. Moorfield,
Yes.
welcome to the task. 2 questions. Can you give us, I doubt you can today, but can you give us a percentage of the work completed compared to the percentage of price paid for the work to a certain point? And are you able to do that monthly with your reports to us?
I don't think there has been an application for payment submitted. So there's really not an answer to the first question because there's been no application. There's been no draw, as far as I'm aware of. But yes, as we go forward, I will review those pay applications, and we will determine a percentage. And it's not a science, as you might expect, because you have materials on site that you bill for. You have work in place that obviously you bill for. So some things will be skewed a little bit. But looking at the whole picture, we will say, 10%, 15%, 85% complete, that type of thing. And that's a judgment call between the architectural firm and myself. I will review it, but the architects, Wesley, will obviously redline those applications.
Mr. Drexler, I would just add too that we haven't had any pay apps from New Atlantic or that group, but we can continue to pay for the phase 1 grading. And Deborah, I believe we're close to 92, 94% complete on the phase 1 grading. It's somewhere up there, so.
And that grading process he's getting close.
He is.
He's getting real close.
I also wanted to point out, we had no water at North Davie Middle School this morning. There was a water main break on Farmington Road between North Davie and I-40, but that had nothing to do with the construction.
I saw that. Any other questions?
Yes, I too would like to welcome you. It's a pleasure meeting you. I just want to make sure that when our architects have been here and we had to make some adjustments in our plans, they were aesthetic adjustments, they were kind of behind the scenes adjustments. When you would drive by Davie High School, when it's completed, it's pretty much going to look like the Davie High School that went out there on that big poster. That's the way it's going to look. Is that correct?
As far as I know. The VE items really, if I recall, don't affect the visual of the school.
Right.
Those are the things that were behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Means and methods, change in materials, but doesn't affect the look.
Right.
I
So,
think that's correct.
and I just wanted to reiterate that. I think that's just important that we continue to make sure the public is aware of that. You know, I think there's some other scenarios that have been kind of put out there that, no, you're not getting what you thought you were going to get, and that is not the case.
As far as I'm aware, that is not the case.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Anybody else have anything for Mr. Moorfield?
Thank you. See you in a month.
Thank you, and we're glad to have you. We appreciate you helping, and we're glad to have you part of the team.
Okay, thank you.
It's good to see you. At this point, we're moving on to the consent agenda, and I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a motion by Ms. Horn. Do I have a second? I have a second by Ms. Owens. It was at the same time. I have a second by Ms. Owens. All in favor, if you would, please signify. We typically don't have any discussion on consent agenda, but do you have? Yeah. I know that you and I had talked a couple things, and I thought we'd. Okay.
Excuse me, the donations report.
Right.
Dr. Hartness, I'll ask you, and you may turn around and ask Deborah to do this, but if it has not already been done, donations for the close, all through and the close of last year, can a report that's easy to be read be submitted to the paper and hopefully will be printed, that includes the number of donors, the amount of money donated, examples of the uses for what the money was used for, and a huge bold letter thank you to all those donors. Because if you've paid attention to that item each month, all of us, it's an incredible amount of money that has come in to aid and assist in all kinds of uses that maybe the public is not aware of, and that's a gold star for a lot of people that have made donations. Individuals, like parents of students, or grandparents, or lots of businesses as well.
I mean, I think it's wonderful to recognize people. I don't know if, I don't know, I think we maybe should talk about that, but because I'm not sure how people would feel about that being presented in, but you're saying delete the names, okay.
No names necessarily,
Okay.
but the amounts of money and the number of
mean,
donations,
Okay.
for sure.
I mean, it's obviously public record, but printing in the paper would be one thing. Okay, well, we can talk about that. Let's move on with our vote. All in favor of the consent agenda? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, we're moving on to business items, and the first item on the agenda is CTE Driver's Education Program, and I'll call on Ms. Donna McNeil to come talk to us about it.
Good afternoon, Chairman Fuller, members of the board, Dr. Hartness. In Dr. Hartness's report earlier, he mentioned to you the General Assembly approving the continuing budget resolution taking us through August 14th. As part of that continuing budget resolution, driver's education was addressed. However, no funds were made available for driver's education. The requirement for LEAs, such as Davie County, to offer non-credit driver education courses in high schools is still in place. Local education systems are authorized to charge participants a fee up to $65, same as we charged last year. Or we could use other state or local funds for this purpose. As you know, there are no state or local funds for this purpose, unless we take it from another source. So as reported to the board previously, the actual cost of driver education exceeds $300 per student in the end. Offering the course to additional students without state funding would require the use of local funds already allocated to other programs. Last year, we spent in excess of $119,000 to support our driver education program. So the staff is going to recommend that new enrollments in driver education in Davie County be suspended until sufficient funds are allocated by the state or LEA, or LEAs are authorized to charge fees that cover the full cost of the driver education program. We plan to provide a letter to parents of students currently eligible to enroll in the course, a list of private driving education programs in our area if they so choose to enroll their child in a private driving school. I contacted driving schools that surround our area last week to get current rates that are being charged for classroom and behind-the-wheel training. You see our driver education vehicles on the road today. As I came over, I passed one. Those instructors are being paid from that $65 fee that we were able to charge last year. We had a little bit of carryover, and that is what we are currently using to finish out those students who had the classroom part during the 14-15 school year that we are currently serving and providing the behind-the-wheel training for. So while the General Assembly is continuing to debate whether or not to require driver education training, and if it is going to be funded, we would like to see the board take action to allow us to suspend enrolling additional students in our program until adequate funding or information comes to us from the General Assembly to state how we are to fund the program and if we are to continue that program.
So we've heard from Ms. McNeil. Do we have any questions?
It is correct right now that in order for a student to get, or anybody to get their driver's license, they must complete a classroom and driver's component.
Yes.
And did I read correctly and hear you just say, and for public information, our folks are considering not requiring driver education prior to get their license.
That is one of the proposals by one of our state senators, yes, sir.
I'm glad you already have your license. I've seen you drive.
I have a question about that, Ms. McNeil, and I'm glad you asked that, Paul, because I wasn't aware of that. I think I asked that same question about a year ago. Was it still a law that they had to have driver's ed? So there is a proposal out there that will say that students do
They would
not.
revoke the current law.
They'll just do the classroom.
For the public driver education program, yes. Right now, if a
But-
student, when someone turns 18, they can get a license without going through a driver education program. But for the students at 14 and a half to be able to enroll in a classroom component and complete and get their learner's permit or their driver's license on their 16th birthday, they have to complete an approved driver education program.
So, and that would simply be due to finances. That's obviously the only reason, and
That
we
is
we
the-
would have inexperienced drivers on the road with no training.
Because there would be no
Because
source of funds
there would
to
be no
provide
source of
that training.
funds.
Unless parents decided they wanted to go through a private driving school.
Now, part of the proposal is to increase the passing rate score on the driver exam at DMV. There was one other component, Jill, what was, increase the passing rate and increase the amount of time that you have to be behind the wheel with another licensed driver with more than 5 years' experience or something like that. So you'd leave it up to parents to train their own students.
And they would have to document that in some,
Exactly. Exactly. They do now to go from different stages of the graduated driver's license program, but you would have no driver's education. So that's one proposal that's out there.
obviously, I got my license a long time ago. And I had driver's ed in high school, and that was in 1967, so.
I think you have to think about it this way too, and, you know, Jeff and I have talked about this. We've both had inexperienced drivers on our
Yes.
insurance policies, and there were many Sunday afternoons, Brian, don't listen to this, that I was in a school parking lot with one of my students teaching her how to drive and how to park when there were no vehicles around. And not every parent is going to take the time to do
Right.
that. The other thing you have to consider is, even if the legislature gave us the authority to charge $300 per student, there are some students who can't afford that. So they would
Correct.
not take the course. Enrollments would go down in driver's ed. You may have more students out there driving without a license, more students that are in fatalities or traffic accidents, or students having to wait till their 18th birthday to apply for a driver's license.
Thank you for clarifying that.
The other concern I have also is mentioning everything that Dr. Hartness just mentioned. You look at our insurance rates after that time frame does, so you've got a domino effect that starts not only with your inexperienced driver, but with harm done later on. So I don't think thinking through this has taken place. It may be a way to cut budget, but it's a scary cut. Very,
It's
very
scary
frightening.
cut.
Donna, just quick question. So for students right now who are going to be affected by this stopping of offering the training, however you want to phrase that, does that put them behind? Because I know things have changed a lot in terms of what's required as far as like the documentation and that kind of thing, but does that put them behind in terms of being able to get their license when they turn?
Yes,
That's
that's what
what
we're
I was
afraid of. I
thinking.
get calls every day, you know, asking about getting their student in, at least getting them in a classroom portion this summer. And all I can tell them is, you can watch what's going on in the legislature, as we do, and I can give them the phone numbers and say, here's the local driving schools.
Right.
But that's all we can do at this point.
I personally, my son, he's 14 and a half. I mean, so, I mean, it definitely,
Right.
so, I mean, I haven't broke the news to him, but you know, I mean, he's like any other child his age, you know, he's already looking towards 16, and,
Sure they
I mean,
are.
it's gonna
It's a big step
delay
for them.
that, so.
Yes.
Just
So
for,
as soon as we get authorization, I mean, as soon as we find out what the funding is, you know, we are ready to start back with the classroom portion. We would start one this summer if they were to tell us today how it was going to be funded. But at this point, we just don't feel like we can move forward and offer classroom or take on any other behind the wheel without knowing where that funding is coming from.
you said earlier that you had called around and just purely informational. I mean, what were the prices on private?
They will vary from one area to the other. I had 65 for classroom, up to 75 and 85. I had behind the wheel from 200 up to 350, I think. So it's going to vary depending on the driving school. I contacted one in Salisbury, Clemens, Winston-Salem, Yadkin County. I went all around, whole area, everyone around us trying to get prices. And I have that list, and I intend to, you know, have it in letter format that I'll be glad to share with anyone who wants that.
Do you have any other comments or questions for Ms. McNeil? Okay. All right, at this time, we have a recommendation on the table. I'll ask for a motion to suspend the new enrollments in driver's education until the final state budget is adopted. We have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Horn. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. This time, we're moving on to our second business item, and this is a roofing repair project at Davie High School Gymnasium. And I will call on Mr. Michael Spillman to come talk to us about that.
Chairman Fuller, board members, Dr. Hartness, guests, and staff. It's recommended that Davie County Schools accepts a quote from professional roofing company out of Mount Airy to do some repairs due to a storm we had last Tuesday that just kind of targeted the large gym at Davie High School, it seems like. Damaged approximately 4,000 square feet of roofing, 115 feet of gutter and trim on the south entrance. It uprooted a tree and tore the fence down, and of the amount of $30,560. And just to clarify, that's only the portion to repair the roof. That's not the floor or any water remediation or anything like that. So.
Have we handled, staff handle that, you guys handle that, or as far as that something, as
Well,
far as the cleanup and
Well, we
insurance?
did, we worked, we had 8 people come in that night of the storm and get the roof rolled back on the gym that night and got it fastened back until the next morning when the roofing company could get there.
Okay.
We got the water up as quick as we could. We covered the floor up with a tarp in case it rained again that night. And the next morning, professional roofing was on site at 8:30 to get the roof fastened back down. And the dilemma with that was, I guess the water was on there just long enough. So we've got a little bit of damage to the floor, but we've got Disaster Pro down there right now with a machine that's drawing the moisture out of the floor.
Okay.
As we, they're going to do that for a couple of days and see where we stand with that.
Good. Good.
But it ripped the fascia off and the gutter down and tore several pieces of the wood backing behind it. And
Right.
it just, when it got under it, it was just like a kite.
Yeah, it took
So,
it. I'm assuming at some point insurance will,
Yes,
Kick in.
insurance been filed. Bill Johnson came on the scene that night, and then the adjuster was there the next day. We've got a preliminary quote from the insurance company of the first payment just for the roof part of it would be about $25,000.
okay.
Suspect that insurance proceeds are going to be more than that, or that's it?
Well, that is just for the roof. That is not for the remediation of the water damage to the floor, and that's not taken into account for our forced labor hours And we normally get some reimbursement for that, so.
Board, the reason you have this before you is it exceeds $25,000 as a contract, so we needed your approval to move on, even though it is part of an ongoing insurance claim. So we can bring you an update at a later date of the total cost of the repairs and the final payment of insurance when it's settled.
That sounds good. I just wanted to make that point, that the insurance would wind up reimbursing us for.
Most of
for
it,
this
yes,
work.
sir.
That sounds good.
Yeah, well, it's prorated. It is prorated. And,
Okay. Based on the life of the
based
roof.
on the life expectancy,
Okay.
expectancy of the roof,
Okay.
plus our deductible.
Okay.
So,
And the difference will be made up out of,
We'll be made up out,
my capital
yeah,
budget.
out of the capital budget. Yep. So we have a recommendation on the table, and at this time, I'll ask for a motion to authorize the staff to enter into a contract in order to repair the storm damage at Davie High to the roof with professional roofing in the amount of $30,560. I have a motion by Ms. Owens, and I have a second by Mr. Drexler. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 6-0. This time, moving on to public address to the board. Thank you, Mr. Spillman. At this time, moving on to public address to the board, Ms. Wilson.
As much as I would be delighted to sing or make some comments, nobody else seems willing to talk to you today, and so we have no actual people signed up to discuss it. So, and I'll forego the singing this time.
I was
We'll
going to
see
ask
about
that,
next
you'd be willing
time.
to sing?
As you can imagine from my speaking voice, it would really be memorable.
Okay, at this time, we're moving on to committee and staff reports, and first committee and staff reports is curriculum, the Read to Achieve update, and I will call on Ms. Noel Grady-Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Fuller, members of the board, and members of the community. I am happy to report that Read to Achieve Camp is up and running. We managed to have one little preschooler get on the bus, and I kept looking at this child and thinking, you can't be in third grade. But every time I'd ask, she'd say yes. Second grade, yes. First grade, can you tell me your teacher's name? We finally got it straightened out. And I'm always happy to hear the reaction from these when something like this happens. The principal of the school that she was really supposed to end up at immediately drove to the Read to Achieve camp, picked her up, and took her where she belonged. But she was happy to just follow us all around the building looking for where she might be, and it was really, she's pretty adorable. I almost kept her. Anyway, I did want to report that we have had a wonderful turnout. You know, it's really tough for a kid to get up, get on a bus, and come into school when they feel like they've just finished. And they arrived very sleepy on Monday morning, but they all woke up and did a great job. And this morning when I asked how many of you are smart, I would say over 75% immediately raised their hands, whereas the first day had a much lower perception of that. As you can imagine, we are working in every capacity possible to demonstrate to these students that they have a lot of ability and that these abilities might be harnessed and brought to fruition in new ways. So we're using the arts. We're using the Hill Center Reading Achievement Program. We're also using quite a bit of multiple intelligence theory applications. Our teachers, 20 teachers, actually 18 teachers, teacher assistant and director, went to Charlotte for training with A+ schools, which was very beneficial. And we were given quite a few commendations by the directors there for how well we use that time and the innovation we plan for this particular experience for our students. They're so deserving. The Mebane Community Foundation is a primary funder for this, as our state allotments for Read to Achieve Camp were cut by nearly half this year. So the Mebane Foundation has come in and provided us with the funds to maintain that very high-quality staff. The only people who didn't come back from last year either had a baby or surgery, so we feel like the teachers really enjoyed the process to the point where they, again, were able to commit. And it's hard also to just finish your school year and decide that you're going to come back for a month and work really hard but these are very dedicated and very talented teachers. I also wanted to let you know that our rate of students receiving the label of fourth grade reading retained was not, it was a surprise to us that so many of those students during the last school year were able to reach proficiency within that 1 year. I would say well over half, and we're doing all the tabulations, it could be even more than that. So this is so beneficial for a jump start into the next year. These students get fourth grade curriculum, and so they come into fourth grade with a little bit of a step ahead. Also, I just wanted to let you know that kinder camps and STEM camps have been up and running at Moxville, William R. Davie, and then we have kinder camps for the first year at Shady Grove and Pine Brook, funded by the Davie Foundation, and an additional grant by Mebane Foundation. Coolamy and Cornetzer also have kinder camps. So we are really alive and well in the summer in Davie County schools. And I'd like to call on John Marshall, if I might, to continue this discussion with a presentation on our 2015 STEM Pipeline Camp.
Good afternoon, Chairman Fuller, Dr. Hartness, members of the board, staff, and guests. I have a short presentation that I'd like to share with you. See if it'll come up. Let me start out by saying this is our third annual STEM Pipeline Camp that was held at North Davie Middle School. We started the camp on June 15th, which is actually, I think, one of the very first days after students had to be out of school. So it was interesting to see how many of those students actually came excited to be at camp on the first day after school ended. This is a camp for rising seventh graders. The first year we did this camp, we only had about 15 students. Last year it increased to approximately 26, and this year we increased to 33. We have been very pleased with the turnout of this camp and what students gain out of this camp. It's a collaboration with Baptist Medical School and CERTL, which is the Center of Excellence for Research, Teaching, and Learning. We work with members of that group to put on this camp, and we get support through the Mebane Foundation and the Davie Community Foundation. Our instructors, fantastic teachers. Don Tabbitt is our director. He's an 8th grade science teacher at North Davie Middle School. He helps design the camp, along with Emily Fanning, who is a 7th grade science teacher at South Davie. In the first day, students organize themselves, and our feedback from students that have been in the camp in the past, it's the first thing they say. The organization that I received during the camp has been a life skill for me that carries through their 7th grade year and even into their 8th grade year. So here you can see some pictures of them getting organized with their integrated notebooks. In the first week, we look at circuits and electromagnetic circuits. Students work together in teams. They're placed on teams regardless of what school they come from. So you may have a student from North Davie, 2 students from Ellis, and a student from South Davie on one team. So they get to learn to work with others who they're not familiar with. This year we added a budget planning piece. So not only did they have to design something, but they had to keep a budget. And the goal in the end was who could move the train the furthest distance with the least budget. And that is amazing to try and figure out how well students were able to budget. We had the electromagnetic train challenge, so they took copper wire and using magnets, they were able to push a train using those magnets. And to see kids' eyes just light up and be amazed at how that actually works is really good to see. We decided this year that one of the things that we found in the last 2 years that was missing was a team building component. So this year, after lunch, we would spend some time giving them team building challenges throughout the day. So the one you see up there with the mats was one of my favorites that I used to do when I was in school. You pile 2 mats on top of each other. You put all 10 kids on top of the 2 mats, and they have to figure out how to get from one end of the gym to the other. And it was funny, after they did it the first day, they were so upset with themselves that they couldn't get it done. They were like, can we do that again tomorrow? We want to figure this out. And that's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to, if they do fail, have them come back and redo that challenge. Some of the other challenges were things like back-to-back art, where they had to draw on each other's backs and see if they ended up with the same picture at the end. And then we did some physics-type things where they had to catch a ball with a couple straws. At the end of the first week, we went to Discovery Place, and that's just a fun trip for the kids, using some things that they learned through the week and put it into practice. Second week is Force in Motion. This year we changed up. Last year we did Rube Goldberg machines. This year we decided to do solar cars. So we spent some time looking at Force in Motion, and we put students through 6 different stations for acceleration, speed, friction, so on and so forth, so they could figure out what was going to be the best way to get those solar cars to move the furthest and the quickest. That's one of my favorite pictures right there from the camp. It shows how the students are completely engaged and working kind of together on the station. We had our solar car challenge at the end. We gave awards at the end for the best looking, the fastest car, so on and so forth. We ended the week with our finale, which is a trip to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. This is a field trip I think the kids just absolutely love. Again, using all those simple machines, learning about force and motion in the real world with what NASCAR does. And there's our group. So, thank you very much. Any questions?
Board, if I may point out, this is not a camp that you can just sign up for. This is a camp that has 2 specific requirements. One is that you have demonstrated potential, but you may not have shown the equivalent achievement levels. And the other is that you have very, very high achievement levels. So we're mixing children who are not usually in classes together. It's very real world. And the students that we find have this experience go into 8th grade, 7th grade, and then later high school with a far better ability to work collaboratively in the STEM program. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for that update. That's exciting. Both of those camps are exciting. The STEM camp, my oldest went to a camp similar to that, and he really enjoyed that. But that Read to Achieve camp is an excellent camp to help kids move forward. Thank you for all your hard work with that, and everyone that was involved in that. At this time, we're moving on to the board policies, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Hartness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your board docs, you have 2 policy revisions for information this month. We would ask you to consider approving these policies in the month of August. One policy deals with immunization requirements. Those are just legal changes. And the other policy addresses the law change that was related to Board of Education elections in Davie County. The North Carolina School Board Association Policy and Legal Services update these policies based on changes in the law. So if you have any questions about either of these policies over the next couple weeks, I'd ask you to consider approving them in August.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're moving on to board comments. Do we have any board comments?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Chad and Clint for agreeing to stay on as chair and vice chair. I deeply appreciate their leadership and look forward to another great year with that. Secondly, the concerns that were shared by our superintendent are the concerns that I hope our entire community has too, with the possible reduction of staff. It saddens me that we have people in our state that do not value education. It frightens me that I see and hear from high-quality teachers that same statement, that they're not appreciated. I can say, for me on the board and the people I've worked with on the board, we have valued each staff member in this school system greatly valued. We know that the quality of our system depends on the people who we have, and we value you. And that is one reason why, over the course of the past 7, 8 years that I've been on this board, reduction of staff has not been an option. We've always tried to make sure that the classroom was protected and not touched. I ask the public, please, stand up. Stand up and say, enough is enough. Let's value education. It frightens me to see teacher assistant cuts. It frightens me to see the arts maybe cut, because a student is well-rounded. They're not just math and reading and writing. That ended a long time ago. An example of what we have now is what John shared, the STEM. Getting along with others, working through problems, learning how to take the basic information and expanding it. It also saddens me that we still have a group of people, very few, who attack our superintendent, who also some of our board members. We in Davie County are better than that. We, as a board, and I thank this board for doing this, we have always taken the high road, and we will continue to take the high road. And to each of you, I hope you have a good remaining summer, but I have to say those things, I'm sorry. It's the teacher in me, but it's also the citizen in me that says, please, citizens of Davie County, stand tall and let your voice be heard.
Thank you, Barbara, for those comments. They were just very well said, and I couldn't agree more. But on a different note, I want to mention Elena Geiger, who has been in our school system for several years, and she has had such an impact on so many children. And her situation needs a lot of prayers, and I know she's in your thoughts and prayers. But the community of educators and the community of parents that have stepped up to go to her home, to have provided meals, to have I can't tell you what that makes me feel like. And I'm not a big Facebook fan, but when I do go on and I read all of that, it just says so much. And as Barbara said, we are better. We are a great community. And so I ask you to continue to pray for her, and I know you do. But again, thank you so much for rising to that occasion and being there for her and her family.
Thank you. Do we have any other board comments?
This has nothing to do with anything presented tonight, but this is sort of a message to the administrators that make the policies to allow, or not policies, but the positions allowable, and it has a lot to do with your desire and your push for the arts. I was a very fortunate teacher many years ago to have been selected to participate in a special classroom, sort of a project that Dr. Landry started when he was a principal at the high school. And in that class, or in that class structure, there were 4 classes, 4 teachers, and roughly 15, 18 students per teacher. And each semester, they rotated, or each quarter, they rotated to one of the different of the 4 teachers. And the way the students got into that program, they were identified by some special criteria. And the easy way to say it was that they had IQs and the potential of doing way, way better than they were producing or performing in the classroom. Now, I don't know all the particulars, but that's the easy way to say it. This is roughly 25 years ago when this happened. Recently, also on Facebook, that I don't deal with a whole lot, but through Facebook, this past student in that program contacted me, and he made several quotes that I'm just real proud that this young man, who was back then, he would fit into what a lot of people would call the hoodlum or thug kind of group. Wasn't an athlete, wasn't in the band, wasn't a part of the clubs, et cetera. He was one of those that would have fallen through the cracks and never have made it through high school if some people hadn't given him some special attention. But he's doing well. He graduated. He served a time in the military and is now married and has a child and has grown up. It almost brings tears to my eye to tell you the story in more detail, but for any, this is congratulations time for any teacher or anybody in the school system, whether a teacher or not, that goes the extra mile and reaches a student either in a classroom situation or a one-on-one guidance, kind of, not a guidance counselor, but coaching a student in any way. Go the extra mile, do the work, and 25 years later, you will get some incredible attaboys for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comment? I just want to give everybody an opportunity to speak if you wanted to. And I just want to say thank you for everyone coming today. At this time, we're going to move on to our closed session, and I'll ask for a motion to go into closed session to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to the North Carolina general statutes listed on our agenda, to discuss personnel matters protected by state law and discuss student matters made confidential by general statutes and FERPA. We have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Horn. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. We're now in closed session.